Hello, fellow Dungeon Jedi Masters. Today we're going to take a look at the wide galaxy of Star Wars and some cool galactic powers that you can bring to your table and tell some new stories that may not be tread as much on in the Star Wars galaxy. You'll see in this title, it's Galactic Powers, no Sith and Imperials allowed. Think of it like that sign from Mos Eisley with no droids allowed. No Sith and Imperials are in this video. I love the Sith. I love the Imperials, but I feel like a lot of time that us as Dungeon Masters, as well as like a lot of like the Star Wars writers as a whole, both Legends and canon, focus on the Sith and Imperials too much. They're great. There's a lot to mine from stories, but Star Wars is a huge galaxy. There's tons of other galactic powers you can draw from and tell some new and different stories to kind of engage your players and make sure everybody's having a good time and having like a new experience too, hopefully. So today I'm going to go over some of my favorite galactic powers that are not Sith or Imperials. And I actually didn't even do any Force users too. I'm going to do another one probably down the line with cool Force users you can use that are not the Sith or not the Jedi. But today this is no Force user. This is just kind of regular old, or not ordinary citizens, but regular old people or organizations in the galaxy that you could throw in and build an engaging story behind. So we're going to go over them, go over a bit of their history, go over some themes and ideas I think that you can use to spawn for your campaign or for enemies with your group, as well as some of like the inspiration or things you can go and read more on them outside of Wikipedia to make sure you just get a good feel for them and can get some cool ideas to bring to the table. But this is not a comprehensive list. These are just some of my favorites. So if you do have a favorite, I didn't mention it, throw it in the comments. Like I'd love to see it. I guess Star Wars has hundreds of different organizations that appear to the novels, comics, video games, and beyond that you could use and draw from for your game. So include what I missed, and we'd love to see it. Before we jump into that, though, we do have a couple announcements. One, check out Todd's Hut Space campaign finale for the first act Wednesday, the 23rd of February at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's on Todd Moonbounce on Twitch. So search Todd Moonbounce on Twitch and it'll come up. If you haven't followed him already, drop him a follow. Check that out. It's been great so far. Cool story with a great crew. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it wraps up and definitely encourage you to check that out too. Kind of going along with this too, for a little bit of a different angle, Todd is going to be developing for our patrons this month on our Dungeon Jedi Master Patreon a factions guide or how-to for factions. So it's going to go over different ways you can bring factions to your table, give them motivations, and have them just really bring a comprehensive angle to your players and make them kind of feel real or lived in within the galaxy. So these ones, he'll be going through how to make your own ones and how to even tweak existing ones. So if you do find any ones with these you like and you want to bring them over and use that document, I encourage you to do so. If you're a patron already, you can go and download that on the 1st of March for our night tier patrons. Or if you're a master tier, I think it'll come up a week before that. So I guess that'd be like the 28th-ish, or not 20, a week before the March 1st. I don't have my calendar in front of me. And you could check that out a week early and kind of give us some cool feedback on it, hopefully, too. So, great. If you haven't checked out our Dungeon Jedi Master Patreon, we do give away adventures like or items like that. We also do adventures. My Invasion campaign, which is on every other Tuesday at 6:30. We're actually doing the Patreon adventure for the year is based on that too. So if you wanted to bring that to your table too, that's one of the cool features our patrons get. So if you haven't already, check us out there, DungeonJediMasters.com. I'll give you a link to our support to the Patreon. Check it out. We've got great content that we're putting out every month for you guys. So let me know what you think of that too in the comments. But we're going to jump right into the story too. So, as I said, this is Galactic Powers, no Sith and Imperials allowed. So, with this, I really wanted to do it because I just feel like a lot of times people, the Sith and Imperials are just so iconic, it can be easy to get lost in writing only about them or making your adventures only about them. But there's so many cool things, and that's one of the things with my Invasion campaign. If you kind of watch the overall campaign now that I'm doing streamed, I've got a lot of different factions in there that are not just the same old Republic, the same old Imperials, same old Sith, to just hopefully bring some lived-in feel to the galaxy and have some different angles rather than norm take place there. So a couple of these you're going to see directly from my campaign. I picked a couple of my favorites, and of course I put my favorites in my own campaign too. But a couple I haven't used yet. So we'll kind of dive right into it. So before we go too far, I did want to put a couple of honorable mentions for ones I'm not going to be talking about today. Uh, the reasons for these ones, I feel like they're well known enough that if you're trying to get out of the Sith Imperial mindset, these are going to be your first stops. Like so, the Mandalorians. If you're not thinking Jedi Sith, you're probably thinking Mandalorian next. People know there's enough about the Mandalorians, enough said, enough known, that if you wanted to use them as for your campaign, you know how to set them up already, or you've got the tools to find out. So we're not going to go over them today. They're a great resource, a great enemy that you can use to mix it up from the Jedi and Sith, but I'm definitely confident that you guys have enough information on those so far. Kind of similar with the Hot Khajiitics, I believe it's pronounced. They're a great group. I highly recommend using them too. They're a funny, cool, backstabby group. They're fighting amongst each other, but they're always looking out for their own profits, and you can have some fun stories to tell with that too. But they're another one that I think people know about the Hut clans and Hut cartel pretty well. That I just didn't want to do them for this video. So they're definitely they're the one I wavered a bit on, and I almost put them in, but I decided that there's enough out there. So if you want to find out more, if you want me to say more too, throw that in the comments. Check out Wikipedia. And there's a book that I'm recommending for another group in here that will give you great intel on these guys too. So you'll still get some inspiration for them too. Uh, Also, on that note, so I want to do a Force user one eventually down the line. And the Witches of Dathomir, I'm going to save for Force user one. They're another one that's pretty common enough, too, especially with the Clone Wars kind of making their own take on the Night Sister and the witches. But they're definitely what I'll touch on down the line, especially give a cool look between the Legends version and the canon version, and kind of how you can blend them or which one you may prefer too. So that one will be one that's coming, so definitely keep an eye out for that. And then finally, the Pikes. The Pikes, they're playing with new canon. They're playing a pretty big role, but they're another one that I think there's a good amount of information about from the Mandalorian, the Clone Wars, etc. That you can, if you want to bring them in, you've got some good tools for them. So I didn't think there'd need to be too much on them, but check them out if you're interested. But we're gonna get into the first actual one. So this one's one of my favorites, and if you followed the Dungeon Jedi Master play by post campaign at all, Balance, you'll see that I've used them pretty heavily there, as well as they're a faction in my new Invasion game too. Zerka's one of my favorite ones for Star Wars because they present a different angle that's not often explored. They're a corporation. They're pure corporate greed. I don't know, they touched on that a little bit with the Trade Federation and the banking clans and the CIS and all of that. But I feel like Zerka just has a unique angle, or just maybe I've got a little bit of nostalgia for them from how I came across them. But they're one of my favorites to play. So for you guys who are not familiar with them, they're called Zerka. Zerka, they've had a couple different names because they had to reform themselves a couple of different times after things have not worked out in their favor. I think they started off as Zerka Corporation, and they were that until the events of Knights of the Old Republic, where they got some poodoo and had to rebrand themselves as Zerka. They had to rebrand themselves. I forgot what they went to. I think they went to Zerka Arms next. No, they ended up as Zerka Arms. But they've had to rebrand themselves a couple of times as they got themselves into some deep stuff due to their corporate greed. So one of the best things with them, so they produce, they have mining, they set up colonies, they make weapons, they do a bit of everything. Droid, manufacturing, starfighters, pretty much everything. They've got their hands in any pot that has a little bit of gold or a little bit of credits at the bottom. They're a fun one to use, especially if you want to have a villain that's not all, I want to conquer the galaxy and make everybody bend beneath me. Maybe you want to have a villain that just wants to make a little bit extra profit, make a little bit extra cash for their people. Zerka's the way to go for it because they do so much crazy stuff, all in the name of corporate greed. So cool thing with them too is they're pretty much active throughout the whole of Star Wars history too. most powerful during the Old Republic era, but they make it all the way up to Legacy era. So you could use them pretty much from any era you wanted to, unless you wanted to do pre-Republic. So that's the only one you can't use. But I think most games are going to be set from that Old Republic to Legacy era. So any game is fair game for Zerka. We've got touched on a little bit, but a couple of ways you could use Zerka. They're cutting edge. So they're a corporation. They put a lot of science or a lot of effort into science. You could have a kind of cool science unchecked angle. So you could have Zerka doing some crazy experiments that are kind of pushing the bounds of morality, and maybe they've uncovered something they shouldn't have uncovered and pushed it too far, and now it's unleashed. And now you've got your players coming to the situation and they've got to figure out what Zerka did and try to reel it back or stop Zerka from going too far again. Or even just corporate greed. They could be one of the cool Star Wars. I say it's sometimes a little played out with kind of the Mandalorian and Boba Fett, but the Western theme is really big with Star Wars. And one of the big things for Western, or even just kind of like a different lens on Star Wars, is just this kind of corporation overstepping its bounds in areas where the government's not powerful enough. So you could have Zerka set up on an outer rim planet or unknown regions planet, or a wild space too, where the Republic isn't there, or for some reason the Republic's too distracted to care what they're doing out there, and have them kind of go and just take over the planet, extort the people, make the taxes way too high. Then your players come in and see this injustice, and maybe they want to act. Maybe they want to help the people. Uh, Zerka's great for that because they're just that great faceless corporation where nobody's really taking responsibility and everybody's kind of saying, "Oh, that's not my problem. I'm just following orders." So you could really get some great mileage from it. And there's just a lot they do. And on the other side too, they've got colonialism, so they set out outposts and colonies that they work to death to find new resources and find new ways for them to make money. So kind of into that Western theme again. You can set them up on a wild outpost, and they're just maybe strip mining the planet bare, or they're pumping fumes to a once lush and natural world, and so they're doing something that's hurting people, but not like the Sith hurting people just to hurt people or hurting people to gain power. They're just looking to make a payday, and everybody's kind of washing their hands of it, saying, "Oh, yeah, it's just it's what my boss or my superior said, and yeah, we've got corporate guidelines." So, play with them, have some fun with them. One of the things I like doing with them too is just really having if I have an NPC from Zerka, have them kind of real heavily corporate speak. So synergies, round tables, all of those words you hear during your business day, just flood the NPCs with that, and just your players will get annoyed with them, and just really it'll have some cool RP and some cool interaction with it. So they're one of my favorites. I've used them quite extensively. For if you haven't checked out our play by post campaign, check that out. It's in the Dungeon Jedi Master Discord. You'll see Zerka's name pop up quite a bit. I don't want to give you spoilers here because I'm not sure if my players are listening to this, but there's more to see with Zerka too. But for stories for inspiration, if you guys have played KOTOR 1 or 2, you're familiar with Zerka. A lot of what I've said is old hat to you. Playing those games, I actually play those games either way. Great inspiration just for this game as a Star Wars 5e as a whole, but for making these, kind of making Zerka as a villain, they go through so much. Kashyyyk, and I forgot what Eden, I think they called it Eden, but they had a different name they renamed Kashyyyk, which is kind of bad on its own too. Really kind of that colonial spirit there, and there's a whole bunch through the Kashyyyk missions that can really just serve as inspiration for their mindset and how to use them as a big bad. Also, the Knights of the Old Republic comic series, they're not too much of a big bad in there, but you could definitely see some of their actions and kind of how they maneuver through the galactic landscape. Really one of my favorites. I love bringing kind of some corporate greed into the Star Wars universe, and really kind of give them some of that, just kind of the more gritty feel that you sometimes don't always get with Star Wars properties, and Zerka can do that in spades. So check them out. They're one of the favorites. Another one of my favorites, you'll see this both from Invasion as well as the play by post campaign. I love the Black Sun. They're my favorite Star Wars galactic criminal organization. And this may be another one that's nostalgia too. You see, there's a couple of my favorite books below the stories for inspiration, and this is just like I didn't want to fill the page with stories for inspiration. There's so many stories that Black Sun plays a part into, and basically for those who are familiar with the Black Sun, especially if you're familiar only with the canon version of the Black Sun. We're gonna go Legends here. I'll say it, and for those who know me, it's not that big of a surprise. But in Legends, they were the boogeyman of criminal organizations. They were galactic wide. They were the strongest. They were the most profitable. They had the most resources, and the biggest part of them, they had the most spies and one of the most well-funded espionage intelligence networks in the galaxy. And that's even during the Imperial period, where you've got the Empire, having the ISB out every corner. They were super well informed and used that information expertly. But what I like about them compared to some of the other criminal organizations in Star Wars, like the Hutts or the Pikes or the Exchange, they're not flashy. They're not the type that they're gonna be walking around with their colors out or trying to draw attention to them. So they're the boogeyman of the criminal network. Many of the people that work for the Black Sun don't even know they work for the Black Sun. They think they work for another gang or another resource or whatever it may be. But Black Sun tries to keep a low profile. A lot of like the regular citizens of the galaxy don't even know who the Sun is. You got to be a little bit connected, either to the criminal world or just connected to the galaxy as a whole, to have a little bit of information on the Black Sun. So what biggest things too that I would use for the actually let me go over the errors first before we go into how I'd use them. Nice thing, this is another one that is active from the Old Republic, and for those who are familiar, so it's not going to be active in the Knights of the Old Republic era. They start up about 200-300 years later. They're just picking up steam when SWTOR starts. So the Old Republic. So they're active. They're another one that's pretty much spanning the time. If you do Knights of the Old Republic before, they're not going to be there. But after that, they're there and you can use them. Another piece too, and I won't give any spoilers because I did mention a couple stories for inspiration, but they lose power in the New Republic Rebellion era for some time, but they do pick up again and kind of back to some of their former glory in the Legacy era. So check that out. But the nice thing with them too is even like the Hutt cartels. This kind of just how to use them. Like the Hutt cartels, even respect them. The Huckajiks. They are one of the ones that they outrank the Hutts. Even the Hutts pay respect to the Black Sun. Nobody wants to cross them. They've got their own mercenary forces. They've got their whole companies of mercenaries that work for them. Just legions of spies and assassins. They could just do just crazy things, all in the pursuit of power and information. And that's the nice thing too with them compared to like the Sith or the Imperials. They're searching for power, but they're not looking to control like the galaxy proper. They're looking to control the underworld, make sure people pay tribute to them, make sure they know everything that's going on and are selling it to the right person, make sure that their shipping, their espionage, everything is just running to peak proficiency. So they're a great one if you want to do the galactic underworld. They could be a great big bad evil guy that's doing something to cause chaos in the underworld because they've got no morals. They're amoral. I wouldn't say they're immoral probably too, but they're without morals. They're going whatever they can to get more credits, to get more power. So they could be a great one on that side. And the biggest thing I like for them is that they're so espionage focused too. Information is their prime like export or their prime commodity. So having like agents everywhere, have them know different things. They can even be like, if you don't want to use them as a big bad for the players, they could be a great resource to have the players go to for information, but then wind up owing somebody a favor. So a lot of times the Black Sun, they'll sell for credits, but if they know somebody like the party who's getting into shenanigans, they may say, hey, take it for free, but you owe us a favor, and we'll call in that favor. Kind of a little mafioso on that side, but just really I would just have them be an ever present or ever almost all not omnipotent, but have them know anything they could reasonably know and use it to their advantage and kind of play a little bit like Xanatos, where even if their plans don't go exactly the way they'd like it, they get some cool stuff too. They still kind of win a little bit because they're looking to sell information, looking to make sure they can control as much of the other criminal networks as they can, and just make sure that they're a good powerhouse. So definitely recommend using them for underworld campaigns or espionage campaigns. They could be a good one to translate to the table, or even have some of your players represent them as a faction too. But some cool stories for inspiration. These are some of my favorites too. Shadows of the Empire, it's a classic. If you played the game or read the accompanying novel with Dash Rendar, they go into the Black Sun and its current leader at the time, Prince Exor, I believe. So check that out. Great inspiration for seeing like the setup for Black Sun and just kind of how they're supposed to be in the galaxy. Also, along those lines, the A.C. Crispin Han Solo trilogy. There's two Han Solo trilogies, so this is a newer one written by A.C. Crispin, one of my favorites. If you watched our book episode, you can see me kind of gush over that novel. It does really well with the Hutt cartel, so a lot with the Khajiits and the Hutts, but it also goes into Black Sun and how they interact with the Hutts and other criminal networks too. So another big one to check it out. And if you want to see Black Sun and the Rise of Exor, check out the Coruscant Knights Jedi Twilight book. You can see kind of Exor coming up the ranks or the ranks within Black Sun. So another one of my favorites. Highly recommend them. Great criminal network that's just a little bit different than we usually see in Star Wars. They're not flashy, but they're powerful. So check them out. This is another one. So I'm an old school Legends fan, and I love Heaps. They're just a weird government, and they could be a fun one, or they're ripe for story potential too. So just before we go into them, I'll give a little bit of history on the Heaps Consortium, because this is probably one that's not super familiar to some who haven't really read Legends too much. But Heaps is a cluster, so they're an isolated cluster within the Star Wars galaxy. They're kind of near the core-ish, but they're in like a nebula, which makes it difficult to travel through, and they're a pretty isolationist nation a lot of the times. One of the interesting pieces for them is they are a matriarchy. So they are the rule. They've got a queen mother who rules, and the women are kind of like the primary citizens, or women are in charge. I'll say, probably the best way to put it. So the men are still there, but they kind of are a little bit more second class citizens. So kind of reverse like a lot of like novels and properties in real life too. So kind of cool on that side. But they are. I was looking them up before this to make sure I had all the information right. They're near human, so they're basically human for everything that matters. But they're one of the pieces of their lore is they're extremely attractive humans. That's how they're described since they've been introduced. Every property they show up there, there's backstory to them too. They started off as like a pirate group. They were defeated by the Jedi, which is why you'll see hostile to Force users on there. The Jedi beat them pretty bad, and they retreated into that nebula and started their own government and kind of grew there. And being pirates and doing unscrupulous things, they kind of went kidnapping people and kidnapping people and kidnapping people, and they kidnapped prettier people, and eventually that just kind of bred in, and they became just a kind of quote-unquote species. I thought they were just humans that kind of evolved along those lines, but they're a near-human species in Star Wars that became super attractive. So kind of a cool piece of lore you can throw out with your players if they can come across any happens. But outside of that, they're just another big galactic organization that's remained independent during the Imperial era. So they're not under the, or they're not under the Imperial's jurisdiction. They're still under the Imperial thumb a little bit. They had to play ball with Emperor Palpatine, but they were not directly controlled. So that's kind of a cool piece there. They play a pretty decent role in the New Republic era and beyond. They're just great for another galactic organization that's just not the Sith and Empire, and especially because they still hold true to their pirate roots a little bit too. So a lot of like the males who get tired of society, or even like Princess Zildor for a little bit, and Princess Zildor is one of the major royal figures during the New Republic era. They go play pirate for a little while in the galaxy as a whole. So they're just a cool one on that side. You can have them pop up as pirates, harassing the area, and they're kind of near. I wish I brought my Star Wars map up, but they're kind of near Kashyyyk, kind of in that area ish. So they could be harassing Kashyyyk. There's a lot of major hyperspace lanes around them. They could be harassing there, and then kind of you could start off with the pirates out there harassing, and then maybe the isolationist nation doesn't want to be isolationist anymore, and especially if you're playing in the post-imperial era, like the New Republic, when it's an Imperial remnant. Maybe they want to make their name for themselves. Maybe they want to kind of they see the Republic is weak and the Empire is the bygone rulers, and they want to see and try their own hat out for taking over the galaxy. Uh, there's so much you can do with them, especially because one of the big things too is they are very hostile to Force users. The Jedi beat them down in the Old Republic era, so this is another one that's Old Republic to Legacy, pretty much spanning the time period for most games. Uh, but the Jedi beat them down, destroyed a lot of their ships and their culture, and they pushed them in, or they retreated back into the Heaps cluster and built their own nation. But they still have that Jedi resentment. So that's a good one to play into too. Even if you're doing the Old Republic era, if you've got the Jedi versus Sith going at each other, the Heaps may want to insert themselves and say, "Hey, we're done with Force users. Let's get on with it." So great on that side. They're also very big in political maneuvering and espionage too. They're another big intelligence network too. So you could have them kind of pop up, even if they don't want to be a big piece of the campaign. You can have them pop up with spies around certain areas, pulling strings, and as certain events go down too, just to make sure Heaps is informed and in the best position too. So cool one. Biggest story I recommend. There's other stories they pop up in, but the one they play the most part without having to read a ton of other stories to catch up on them. Courtship of Princess Leia. Nice, cool thing too. This is another 2-for-1. So it has the Heaps Consortium. You get to learn more about them, their culture, Princess Zildor, but you also get to learn more about the Dathomirian witch clans too. So this goes to Dathomir. This is where they were introduced. This is where they were introduced. You get to learn about the Legends old school Dathomirian witch clans. Still has the Night Sisters in there too, but you get to see a different take of them. They're still human at this point. It's before Clone Wars rewrote them a bit. They're my favorite take of it, so check it out. It's a weird book. It's one of those ones that I love the lore of it. The writing's not always my favorite, but it's a good one. It's good to read. It's really some cool backstory. Remember, though, it's in the Bantam era, so this is way before the prequels come out, so there are some contradictions on that side, too, but still great, worth reading, and some good information, too. So another big one, the Order of the Canton Circle. So this is a cool one. This is one that's a little bit different. It doesn't get a lot of shout outs, but the Canton Circle, and I may be saying that wrong too. So if I'm saying that wrong, put it in the comments. But they're a great organization to use if you want to have like a political thriller or have like a secret cult in the Star Wars galaxy. This is the guys you'd use. So it has a shorter run time because I thought they were longer than they were, but it came out the Rusan Reformation, so it's 1,000 BBY, so 1,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. Basically, it came out as Republic reformed itself after the last big Sith war. So it makes sense that a shady kind of political high caliber organization would come out there. But basically, what the Canton Circle is it's a collection of the Republic and then empires and then somewhat New Republic. They got phased out a little bit as the New Republic grew, but a collection of the government's highest tier of like-minded individuals. So you get a lot of like Plagueis, the Darth Plagueis novel goes over this pretty well. But you get a lot of like the banking clan individuals. You get a lot of the Trade Federation individuals, Republic senators, Supreme Chancellors. It's like it's basically Star Wars Illuminati is how I should say it. They play behind the scenes. They tweak events to their advantages. And the nice thing, and note the timing too, with the Rusan Reformation. For those who are aware, that's the Darth Bane period, kind of what Darth Bane took out the old Sith and made the rule of two. And the Sith were a very big... They never kind of went over how it was created, but Plagueis has mentioned that the Sith were always a pretty guiding hand upon the organization to help destabilize the Republic by by just doing shady things, by making people richer, exasperating conflicts, just all these different things that a shady organization can do when you've got the galaxy's wealthiest, most powerful, most influential people on its team. So this is a cool one. Unfortunately, I didn't have a logo for them. They didn't have a logo, or I couldn't find an official logo, I should say, for them. So I've got, but it's still one that you could really use well, especially if you wanted to make like a mystery or like a political thriller type campaign. These would be the guys to do it. You could have the behind the scenes pulling strings and the players kind of slowly unraveling the mystery and finding the order of the Canton circles behind it all, and then having to figure out who's all involved with it, because it's most people in the galaxy. This is even more secret than the Black Sun. Black Sun, if you're in the underworld a good bit, or if you've just got kind of galactic connections, you've probably heard of them. Order of the Canton Circle, it's real close to the vest for the powerful people of the galaxy. So this could be a great one. We can set everybody, all the players, up on even footing, and have them try to uncover what's going on here. So political thrillers, mysteries, corruption, just really have them behind the scenes, pulling strings and making life hard for the people of the galaxy and the players themselves too. So they're another good one. They're one that's not used too often too. So you kind of have a good free hand with it as well. So play around with it, and especially if you're using it in the Rusan to Old Republic era before Imperial. You could have the Sith kind of play a little bit too. I know we said no Sith allowed, but you could have them play it back in the background and have it can be a nice reveal for the players at the end, where it's not like the whole time they're not expecting the Sith, and then whoa, there's a Sith. So I think that can still keep the Sith interesting there, but making the focus mainly on the Order of the Canton Circle. So those are just some of the cool kind of galactic powers within the Star Wars universe. I had some fun researching this. I posted this for our patrons to decide which one they wanted to go for. They wanted to go for galactic powers, and I thought, yeah, this would be a cool one to do, and just some of the ones that are just not utilized too often. So if you enjoyed the content, please drop a like in the video. If you're not already following us, follow us on our YouTube. Subscribe to us on our YouTube. Follow Todd on Todd Moonbouts on Twitch TV. Follow me on Tegan DJM at Twitch TV. Then definitely check out all of our social media with Instagram, Twitter, and all that at Dungeon Jedi Masters. You can search all Dungeon Jedi Masters or go to our website, and they'll give you links to everything too. But I had some fun with this. Let me know what you think, and may the Force be with you.